Don't you find that visiting a hairdresser is such an intimate moment? I mean, you always end up telling your hairdresser something that you weren't expecting. You get to talking, you get really deep really quickly. I think it's because there's someone touching your head, which is a place that it's not really touched by a lot of people too often. So you get comfortable very, very quickly. I mean, I always do. The last time I went to the hairdresser, we ended up talking about all sorts of things. One of the subjects we talked about, which was really unexpected, was demonology. And it's something that she's interested in and something that she likes to study. And she's also into like witchcraft and other things. And one thing she told me about demonology was that apparently there are demons on the planet disguised as human beings, and she told me that I should have a closer look and really look around me because not everyone is human. And she said that there are a lot of people pretending to be. And then I was like, what do you mean? Like, you can't just say things like that and leave it at that. I think you need to be very specific. Give me details. Let me look for signs. And she just wouldn't tell me. She was just like, focus, look around, and you'll see for yourself. Like, you'll figure it out. And I was like, I don't think I will, but thank you. I really like her. I've known her for a few years. And yeah, it's always a good time. I mean, we didn't hit it off the first time because I was like in a bad mood that day. And I guess she kind of wanted to chat, but I wasn't really into it. But the second time we met, we just clicked. And yeah, I really enjoy our conversations, despite how random they are. Random and unanswered conversations. Today, I will be talking about one of California's most notorious hairdressers, which is Carrie White. Carrie was a celebrity hairdresser born in 1943. She was raised and born in California. Her original name was Carol, but she changed that in high school when she decided to revamp herself. But we'll get to that later. In her book, Uppercut, Highlights of My Hollywood Life, she talks about a lot of the different things. She talks about how it was growing up in California, her rise in the hairdressing industry, which at the time was a very male-dominated industry, surprisingly. Her marriages, raising a family, and her fall from grace, and her becoming a heroin addict later on in life. Carrie also discusses her use of alcohol throughout the book. Whether in good or bad circumstances, alcohol was always a constant in her life. She opens up the book by talking about her first drink at the age of 6. Her mother was an alcoholic and often asked her to fix her drink. Bourbon and 7-Up was her drink of choice at the time. More bourbon than 7-Up. Her father was physically abusive and early in her life abandoned her and her mother, and it was a subject that her mother refused to speak about. So growing up, she didn't know anything about him and always wondered when he would be back. Honey, could you make Mummy and Johnny a little drinky poo? I liked it when Mother included me. I picked up their glasses from the coffee table that never had coffee on it and walked to the bamboo bar. Mixing drinks was easy for me. I'd been doing it for my mother and her boyfriends for a while. Not much to figure out. There were only 2 bottles behind the bar. The book is divided into 7 parts. Part 1 and Part 6 were by far the most difficult to read. In Part 1, Carrie talks about the sexual abuse she endured as a child from her mother's boyfriend, Johnny, which was completely gut-wrenching. I've watched videos on child abuse and things like that and documentaries, but to like really read it in detail and to read it from the beginning until the end was really very difficult. But it was just so shocking. Years later, still a child, she was forced to speak about these horrific moments. Do you know the difference between the truth and a lie? Yes, I lowered my head. Then questions lined up like firing soldiers. What did he make you do? What did he do to you? Where? When? I was freezing cold. I mumbled my answers. I didn't want Johnny to hear me. Speak up for the court, please. Speak up. I was programmed to never speak of this. Now they want me to tell everything in front of him. This was agony. You may step down now. They found Johnny guilty and gave him the maximum jail time, 6 months. I mean, the sentence just completely floored me. I couldn't believe it when I read 6 months. I just kept staring at it, thinking, what the fuck? We have come a long way. 6 months for abusing a child. And not only her, there were other children involved. I think another thing that was also surprising to me was reading about her mother's reaction. She was so cold in nature. It seemed like it almost bothered her that this thing came out instead of her daughter actually being abused. I don't know, it was very strange. And the fact that other girls were also involved, it was very horrible. Not a hug, no tears, no apologies, she just asked her why she wasn't told about this sooner.